As a freelancer, you should never negotiate anything because your skills are worth what you bring to the people. Freelancers mostly think about skills instead of thinking about value.
You don't really just want to work with the cheapest person. You want to work with the person who's going to change your life. So in the end, the point about the price is not the price, it's the value you create. Stop selling your skills. Sell the value you're going to create and sell the transformation you're going to bring.
A lot of freelancers got stuck in that trap, let's say, of I have the skill, I am the best at that skill, because they see their skill as a job, not as value.
At the end of the day, your job as a freelancer is not to make your job as a freelancer, is to
Hello guys, it's a pleasure to welcome you again for our podcast together with the Scale Up Show. And today we will talk about freelancers, but we will tell you how to stop negotiating for your own freelance activity and your own skills. So Antoine, pleasure to have you again.
Hi.
Ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
Let's talk about freelancers today, how they can improve their own work and, let's say, work smarter, because that's way more important when you are alone, when you do the job as a freelancer, even if you have a team behind, but it's not the same job as scaling a company. So
it's actually a pretty common trap. When you are the freelancer, people say, "Oh, what kind of discount? You know, what's the price? Oh, it's expensive for an hour of work and blah blah blah." And when you're on the client side, well, obviously you're doing the same thing, but the other way around, and you're trying to see, okay, if I pay this amount for an hour of that person's time, what do I get? And in the end, what's the relationship between both? What is it that makes it very relevant for the freelancers in terms of selling for higher prices and killing the negotiation that also creates value for whoever is buying? That's the key question.
Yeah, I agree. And as a freelancer, you should never negotiate anything because your skills are worth what you bring to the people. But if you don't get to understand for the people, the customer, potential customers to understand your value, then the hic is there.
But that's the thing. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's get started.
Just a hint. The answer is in exactly what Jérôme just said. There are two keywords. Maybe you didn't catch them, so rewind. Check it out, but the answer is exactly in there.
Great. As a little title of what we will talk, we can maybe make an introduction as people and freelancers mostly think about skills instead of thinking about value. And that's mainly what we will discuss today. We'll try to bring more elements we can on that end. And first question, where do we find those freelancers today?
Everywhere.
Is that an answer?
That's
the answer I was thinking.
That's I know I'm cheating, but that's the reality, right?
That's right? That's right.
You want to look for freelancers, you go on Fiverr, you go on Upwork, you look down the road, you look in your mailbox and you receive emails from people who say, "Hey, I'm a freelancer, do you need help?"
And even on Instagram, even on whatever WhatsApp group you have in a community like Lisbon here, we have multiple groups of whatever kind of groups it is. And you have always freelancers on it trying to get to sell you something. And so freelancers are everywhere. And you have to understand, if freelancers are everywhere, you are nowhere because it means you are just in the crowd. So that's mainly the first thing. It's how can you be seen? Maybe not as a freelancer, but you are still. But maybe not as a freelancer. But how can you be seen while on the market there is a lot of people doing what you do, and a lot of people having the same prices, a lot of people having the same quality of content, let's say. So how do you get back to that, and how do you get customers?
There are two things in what you just said. There is one, the notion of what your work as a freelancer is worth. And two, there is the price.
Yeah.
I'll start with the second one because that's the easy one. Who plays by the price dies by the price. I've never seen people just go for the cheapest option just because it's cheaper. If you compare option 1 and option 2 and they're exactly the same value in the end, the same worth, then yes, you take the cheaper one, right? Because that's the same. But when you compare, you don't really just want to work with the cheapest person. You want to work with the person who's going to change your life. You want to work with the person who's going to turn your videos into something wow, and that's going to make money for you. You want to work with this babysitter because your kid loves her, and maybe she's a bit more expensive, but your kid loves her. That's why you're working with her, right? So in the end, the point about the price is not the price; it's the value you create in the end.
And I will give an example because on one of my companies, I got to sell because it was not the objective of that company at first, but I got on a market where I have an expertise, not a digital and marketing and communication expertise, but I have an expertise of the world market, how it works, what the need, how it should be improved, how it should be bring to people. And because of that expertise, and because I had a team that made for me a few graphics, few communication stuff, tools, and everything, I got to say to those companies that I was trying to help and to work with, guys, why do you do it that way? You should do it that way, okay, first step. Second step is you don't have anybody doing that in your team, okay. Third step is I'm not cheap, I cost mainly the high basket of that market, but I do it with my own expertise. So do we work together? And most of the time it's a yes, because I have the expertise of the market. So my advice will be for freelancers that have a real expertise on one subject. It doesn't mean their skill. If they are graphists, they don't have to focus on the graphic market. No, if you are a graphic, but you are, I don't know, a gamer, for example, focus on that gaming market because you can do graphic for that gaming market, and on that gaming market, show the people, guys, you should do it that way. I can help you. I'm not cheap. I have a good price actually, but what I know is that it will be worth it for you. And on that end, it makes a huge difference because you are mastering what the need, what the people wait from that market, and even before they get to ask you what they want, you can give them. So on that end, you can go for higher contracts, and I will give you an example on the contract I just said with my market. We go on a 5K monthly basis minimum contract. We go from 5 to 10K without even explaining what we will do monthly, without even having a step-by-step, you do that. No, we just know what we'll have to bring to the people. And if they say yes, we begin to create and we bring them slowly but surely, and then we add value, because it's totally concording with what they want and what they need for their own development compared to which level of development they are. So
you're giving a lot of clues here because there is, so one, it's not about being cheap, it's about giving value for money.
Yeah.
And the freelancers, let's say the independent people who work on their own and they work for a variety of clients, us included, right? We're not cheap. We don't want to be cheap. Cheap means you have to work a lot more. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
You don't have time to work more. That's simply not possible. So you have to work less for a higher price, which means you can't be cheap. You have to provide value for money. Point one. Point two, you said you give them what they need before you can deliver on what they need before you even know what they want, blah, blah, blah. The need and the want, there are two very important terms here, because typically when you want to talk to a freelancer, that's because you need to solve a problem, right? And you have expectations, as in the freelancer I'm looking for is supposed to be able to do coding in that language, or is supposed to be able to manage that kind of social network, right? Or the babysitter is supposed to be able to take care of kids. Fair enough, that's a need. What you want is not the same. What you want is the benefit of it, is the expected transformation, the radical transformation that's going to happen. You don't want your kid to be just with that babysitter, well, with a babysitter. You want the kid to be with that babysitter because the kid is going to spend an awesome evening and you can go and enjoy dinner, right? You want to work with someone who's going to be able to develop whatever software in whatever language. Who cares? You want the thing to be delivered in time, right? And you want it to work. And you want to be able to use it as soon as possible to make money. So if you are the freelancer who is selling time, wrong idea. And an expertise which is I'm coding in whatever language, wrong idea. If you're the freelancer who says I'm going to develop that solution in this given time frame with this budget, and I'll be looking at editing the thing how many times you need, and I'm not going to charge you more, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you're going to be more expensive, but that's peace of mind. What they want is peace of mind. What they want is to be able to make money while having the peace of mind. That's where there is the difference.
Yeah, and in the example I gave, I think it's totally that, because you see the huge difference in the before and the after for the customers in that communication way with the tools we bring them in that special area again. And because they see that difference and they see the difference for their people, their community and all the people around, then the impact is way more easier for them to scale on their own market. So when you have a customer that see the growth of his company and the scaling of his company due to the tools you bring, he won't even come to discuss the price. Maybe sometime he will come, I want a little more on that end or that end. Okay, it's fair. We'll do that. We'll get to maybe not even change the price, but adapt what we do for you so that we, on our side, spend the same time, but still we'll go more on what he thinks he needs. But on the other hand, we're still bringing him what he really needs. So we just have to adapt in the end, because when you go on a long-term relationship, just waiting for things, it doesn't really work. But bringing things and adapt to what it tell you, then it makes a huge difference in the peace of mind of the customers. So yeah.
The point about the skills, I mean, the difference between thinking in terms of skills and thinking in terms of value, it's relevant if you think in terms of how do you sell your own services, right? You are the freelancer, and how do you make sure that you can make more money? Well, stop selling your skills. Sell the value you're going to create and sell the transformation you're going to bring, right? But if we think in terms of, okay, you are still the same freelancer, but now let's say you want to go play golf or sell, whatever you want, free time, then at some point you realize that time is the wrong currency and you don't have enough time. So your next step becomes to scale up show, right? And when you become involved in that thinking, right, I need to scale my business, I need to do things differently, that logic of saying skills is not the same as value is becoming even more interesting, because to be able to do whatever you want to do, you have to hire people. And when you hire people, if you do the same trick, then you go much further, because if you just start hiring people based on the skills they have, you won't have the same result as if you hire them based on the value they can provide. So it's exactly the same situation, but you switch.
Yeah, and I will still bounce on the same example I'm still with. On my case, when I, for example, invoice for 5K a month, I have only one person working behind, and that person is mostly paid around 2,000. What does it mean for me? It means, in the end, I do 3,000 margin just by managing the project, because my employee not actually, it's a freelancer. So that's why it's really interesting for that subject with all together. That's freelancers that work for me. He just does the job because he don't have the expertise of that market. He just do graphically what I say him, and he's really good at it. Great, but he could never get that kind of contract because he don't have the understanding and the expertise of that whole project, whole ecosystem, whole niche. So because I do that, I have the expertise, I can 2.5x what I invoice from a traditional freelancer. So it gives you the idea how in your own area expertise you could bring that freelancer skill value to a customer and still be making them pay 5 times more, just because you will do the same work, but you will bring an expertise and being more aligned to what you can bring to a customer. Even for you, it's peace of mind also as a customer, but it will be less heavy also. So you will have more pleasure work. If you are in an area as a freelancer where you need to have creativity, then you will have more creativity. It will flow easier. So yeah, you really need to find that niche, that expertise you have in addition of your skill, and be focusing on that one.
Speaking of speaking of examples, there is one that that I quite like. It's a friend of ours who from the years back in Hong Kong, who built a business that took a lot of skills, because he was the business was an accounting business and company secretary business, right? Which is something every company needs back in Hong Kong, because they are in charge of keeping your books and doing the administration and the interface between your company and the finance administration, right? So you can't skip them. But there are so many of them that it's very easy to go and take the cheaper one, right? This guy was not an accountant. He was a businessman. But he was smart enough to know that when someone was saying, okay, can you help me build a company? They were not asking him personally to build the company. They were asking his value as an entrepreneur. And they were saying, can your team help me build that, right? His team had the skills, he had the value. And when his team was working, he was on his boat. And the whole operation was set up from an office that just had enough space for 3 chairs, right? Because in Hong Kong, the real estate is very expensive. So the least space you need, the better. But he could have 200, 300, 400 clients managed with a fixed fee every year based on that, just because he figured out how to leverage that difference between what I want as an entrepreneur is someone who can keep my books. And I don't mind paying 500 more than whatever, right? As long as you can guarantee that my books are going to be clean and I'm not going to take a fine from the finance administration, I'm happy to pay. Skills, value.
Yeah, and the skills are the same actually. It's just the value that is bring behind the skill.
His skills were not the same. The accountants had accounting skills. His skill was to get the accountants together. And that's where it becomes interesting in terms of scaling a freelancing business.
Yeah.
Because at some point you've got to realize that you are not your business.
Exactly.
You've got to take that idea out of your fucking mind. Excuse my French. Right? You've got to realize that your value is in understanding your market, which is what you just said. The value is in saying, okay, my clients need skills 1, 2, 3, 4. But what they want is peace of mind with that. They want their problem sorted so they can go play golf. How can I make that happen? And that's going to be more expensive. So if you want to switch from being just the same freelancer as your buddy Mike, and the same freelancer as every freelancer I can find online, If you want to switch from that, then you've got to be either still the freelancer who's going to be more expensive because the value is going to be crazy, or the freelancer who's managing to get together some more freelancers who can produce value together, but your value is getting people together, mixing it, making it happen, building the extra value based on that.
And you are, so yes, you are a freelancer in the end, and because you can be fully alone in your company and selling with the companies that only you 100% own the company. But in the end, you are a businessman. You are not anymore a freelancer. You can call yourself a freelancer if you want, but what are the skills, Antoine, you are talking about is being a businessman. And that value, you can get it only if you go out of the scope of being a freelancer with only a skill. No.
You can actually have the same discussion, but you take the exact same thing you said, but you replace freelancer by technician. And that describes the next level. The freelancer is usually one person, right?
Yeah.
But you have a lot of companies where you have a team of technicians, let's say developers, right? And you have one company, that company has 10 people in the team and they all develop something, including the boss. I know I've got that kind of company as my clients, right? So it's a real story kind of thing. And when you look at that and you're like, guys, okay, tell me, what do you do? We're developers. That's not very sexy, right? Let's try again. We build this and that. Okay, that's better. What is the value you create? Oh, that's a difficult question. We create software. No, that's not the value you create. That's the output. That's not the value. Okay, we create gaming. That's better. We create fun. That's much better. We create experiences. That's a lot better.
We like it.
Right? And the difference is that the freelancer or the technician who's developing is getting a cut for the technical expertise in the end, which is maybe 10% of the whole bill, because their clients are going through creative agencies who can come up with the value proposition. So me as the client, I'm going to go and see you and say, oh, I want to build that extraordinary experience game. Can you help? And you are going to help me figure out the story. But then you are going to call that company and you are going to say, guys, here is the script. Can you please build a game? And you are going to pay them 5 to 10%. The rest is in your pocket because you had the genius idea in the first place. And what is going to make the difference for my clients?
And you
right?
manage the work
and you
process.
manage the thing, but they're going to do the work. The difference is if you take that exact same company that's making the work and you say, okay, guys, just pitch it differently. Think in terms of what is the fun you're creating, what is the experience you're creating, what is the storytelling you're going to build around that. Then they don't need you anymore. They can do it.
Exactly.
So you get squeezed out because in the end, your value was to do the storytelling that they couldn't do on their own.
And they will take just another freelancer or agency or whatever. Same value. Brings that value. Yeah. And a lot of freelancers got stuck in that trap, let's say, of I have the skill, I am the best at that skill. You will see I will have a lot of customers once you've done one good project. You see, I'm the boss, and they just don't get any more contracts because they see their skill as a job and not as value still. And also, they think by doing their skill, just getting occupied doing their skills is enough to bring customers. They don't get to see the big picture of being an entrepreneur, being a businessman, bringing energy and dynamics to bring customers. And so, of course, it's difficult for them to go from contract to contract that have 3 months space, and they hope to be able to still eat something else than how do we say pasta? In English, I don't even know. Pasta. So it's
the Italian difference is just the pasta.
Yeah, the wording. Yeah, but yes, for the people as freelancers, you really have to go out of that aspect. You are not an employee anymore. You don't have a job. If you work, it's to bring customer, and if you bring customer, you want to bring them value, not say, hey, I have my business, I do that, yeah, I'm strong, you see, but you just do nothing because you have no customer, because you just don't do the job.
It's a glorified job.
Yeah, that was the word I was searching for. So you don't have to get glorified for that. Actually, you don't care, and I hope you don't care. If you need to be glorified, there is some work you need to do on yourself. But please don't search for glorification and get focused on, okay, where I can bring value so that people will talk about me just by the value I speak.
There is something also that makes sense to mention in that discussion. If what you're saying is, hey, I've got my own company, I'm a freelancer, I've got my own company, and what you're proud of is having your own company, then you're missing something. If you make 5K a month with your company and you're making 4K a month working for someone else, you're probably losing somewhere. You're thinking, I'm making 5 instead of 4. Wow. But that's not the point. The point is, when you work for someone and you get 4, means you don't have to buy the furniture, you don't have to buy the software, you don't have to buy the computer, you don't have to do the accounting yourself, you don't have to
search customers,
look for customers, you don't have to deal with all the bullshit that the company has to manage on its own, and you're just doing the technical work in the end, right? So that's 4K, no hassle, no problem, just doing the job in the pocket. Now you switch, you've got your own company, wow. You're making 5K. Wow. No clients. Ooh. So it's your company, but it's just a shell. It's just a legal structure. And you have all the trouble that comes around that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this because it's something I see quite a lot, where I see people say, oh, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. Good. What do you do? Well, I've got my own business. Okay. What do you do? I'm a freelancer. Okay. What do you do? You're still not telling me what you're doing, right? Oh, I do coding for websites. Okay. Good. And what kind of value do you create? And I do coding for websites. I just told you. Okay, that I know you just told me, but that's not telling me what value you create. So that's something that you can really think about in terms of how can you do better for yourself. But think about how you describe the money you make.
Yeah.
Lots of people say I'm charging more money than I was making before. That's just something we hear, right? But just because you are charging more money than you were making before doesn't mean there is more money in your pocket. Because you are not thinking in terms of profit, you're not thinking in terms of investment, you're just thinking in terms of pure cash flow, and you're missing half of the picture.
Exactly. And I think it's a lot connected to the pitch subject. So whether you want to speak about your business in something that you feel proud about, or whether you have a pitch that goes more into the value you bring to the people and the experience and the emotional way of all of that, the more you will bring people just without wanting it. Actually, the example I gave about my companies that make communication with this specific field, I have the knowledge and the expertise. I didn't want it to get them as customer at first, because why would I spend time to take care about a customer? It was not the point of that company. We got into it because we are good at it and we have a real expertise, but that's why we got to put some minimum prices, because we didn't want to take care of those customers. If we have to take care of those customers, it's because we have the price in front and the energy we put is not that much. And it's okay to put that not so much energy on it to have the customers happy and us taking the margin. But if not, it's not worth it. So that was also something that got us into that situation. And if you wish to have customer, maybe sometime you should think about not wanting them and what will make you want them even if you don't want them. And then, okay, you have an in-between, a balanced situation where you get paid enough to work at least a certain minimum and being okay with that and never being bored about working with that customer. And so whenever you ask something, you are 100% fully behind. And whenever you want to bring something, you are, again, 100% in front doing the job and showing him. So this is an in-between that is really interesting, to have this balance when you are kind of freelancer and you want to get people happy about your job and you being okay paying the bills and get your own cut.
You said something when we started, you said don't negotiate.
Yeah. Whether I think it's a long time I didn't took customers that wanted to negotiate. It's either I giving a minimum price and an actual price, and he take the minimum because he don't want to spend too much, and it's okay because the minimum for me is the price I would just wanted, or I just don't take the customer. So for me, it's a long time I didn't negotiate for a customer side as a customer. So for me working.
Can you explain?
Yeah.
Because what you just did was you gave a solution.
Yeah.
Right, but you didn't shape it as a solution. So just to be practical, something people can use now.
Yeah.
How do you make sure when you make a proposal to a client, they're not going to negotiate? I know the answer, but
yeah, okay, no, you're
on.
right. And now I got what's your point. So actually, it's a technique in negotiation. It's a technique to not negotiating. So you give a choice. By giving a choice to the people with the minimum choice that is your ideal choice, and the higher choice that is more subsequent position for you that is way more than enough, then you don't have to negotiate anything behind, because the customer knows the range, he knows the area of where I can get the contract, and because of that, then you don't have to say, oh no, I will give you 20%. No, I don't really like to give a percentage because our time. No, we don't care about that. We don't have to even argue about anything. So to negotiate, because we gave already the scope. We gave minimum is this. Most of the time we do this. If not, you're not okay with that, we just do that, but be aware that it's our prices and you go on or you don't.
We do it with not just 2, but 3 or 4 silos.
That's good. Do you call it silos just for the people?
Yeah, just silos. So
it's contract.
Option 1, option 2, option 3. In our case, we have 4. I'll explain why after that, but 3 is usually a good idea, because 3 means there is the cheap one, and as I'm saying that on purpose, the cheap one. It's cheap, but there is no real value in there, right? So it's not good value for money. It's just a cheap one. And then the third one is the expensive one, but it's got extra value for money because there is everything you want in there. And in the middle, there is the one that you want people to get, which is the one that doesn't take you too much time, but gets them the value they're looking for typically. Why do you have 3? Because if you have the first one and you know it's not relevant, that gives them something they can just take rid of. And it's the symbol of saying, no, this one I don't want. It means when they say the first one I don't want it, they are making the choice of saying, I want something else. I'm getting rid of number 1, so I am considering number 2 and number 3. And then they can say, okay, number 3, that's too much. I'm not there yet. So I'll take number 2. And slowly but surely, you're getting them to the number 2. Whereas if you just have 2 options, they're going to look at both, and you don't have that psychological kind of process.
I agree.
Where they get to something. In our case, we went to 4. So number 1, no real value. It's just a way to say, if you want the cheap option, there is a cheap option, but here's what you get, and you're not getting much. The last one is the one that we use when we have to work with a board and a team, and that's the expensive one. And then the 2 in the middle are, because sometimes we work with just one CEO, and he wants us to work with him, so that's just him. And sometimes that CEO is going to say, okay, I don't have a board yet, so there is not 5 people I want you to work with, but I want you to work with my number 2. And so in that case, basically the 2 options we have, they're not going to be the same amount, but the difference is going to be how many people do we have to work with. So in our case, there is 4, but most people can do very good with just 3.
Yeah, I agree with you. And 3 is really good one. We didn't, because I think 2 it was just we give and we don't really care. So I was in a situation where I was not optimizing the process. But if we do optimize the process, I agree with you a lot. 3 is the best to point to the number 2. And so, for example, if on my case, I would have done the 3 options, I would have sold more at 10K than 5K because I would have put 15K in maximum. So it will have make more worth to the number 2.
It's also a question of, and that's a really good point for freelancers who think in terms of how can I sell more? How can I kill the negotiation phase that I hate, right? And there is a very simple exercise to go through. It's you open your browser and do it while we're talking. Go on, okay, Netflix, not because Netflix, they just have one membership, right? But look for insurance companies, or if you have a website, look for plugins, right? And you're going to see, or if you need some LinkedIn automation, right? You go on LinkedIn automation and you're going to find 10 different websites that are going to give you a solution to automate your LinkedIn posts, right? They use those silos. And the good ones, they have a strategy to leverage those silos, which is very different from the other ones. Some are very technical, and some pitch you not the description, not the technicality of it, but the benefits. Some are going to say, okay, in silo 1, 2, 3, you have this amount of contacts you can send, and this is the technology, this is how many messages, this is just very technical, right? And what happens when you do that is you take the second company and you compare. And for that many dollars, I've got 300 messages. For that many dollars, I've got 500. Oh. And it's just a matter of comparing.
Mm-hmm.
If your pitch is not about how many messages you can send, but it's about the value you're going to get, then you are pushing people to compare pears and apples. It's not apples anymore. It's two different kinds of fruits. And the point is to say, what in your expertise could be switched from just something technical? I can write 5,000 words an hour to the benefit that the client is going to get. I can write storytelling that nobody is going to ignore.
Bringing value.
If I'm a freelancer and my job is to write speeches for my clients, which is not my job. I might be doing it, able to do it, but that's not my job. If I'm doing the silos thing and I'm saying, silo 1, I'm going to charge you this amount and I'll write 2,000 words an hour. And silo 2, I write 5,000 words an hour. Does it mean I'm going to write less words an hour just because I'm paid less? Of course not. It's not creating any value for anyone. If I'm saying silo 1, I'll write 1 article. Silo 2, which is, by the way, 3 times more expensive, I'll build your storytelling. I'll shape your offering. I'll pick the right tone of words, of voice. I'll pick the right SEO keywords that we need to include in the speech so that you can get found by Google, blah, blah, blah. One is just technical. One is just value. One is what I might need, maybe not, and I'm going to compare. The other one is just what I want. Which means, at the end of the day, your job as the freelancer is not to make your job as a freelancer, is to figure out who your client is. What they need is the thing. What they want is the real thing.
And it makes a big difference.
And it makes a huge difference.
You're not even compared to your competitors or other freelancers. You're just bringing a value that, okay, it's worth it and we'll try. And if you do the job, then you can scale. So yeah.
And one last point, I think, is don't charge by the hour. The time as a freelancer is, well, the time is always the wrong currency.
Exactly.
And sometimes, I mean, we see that a lot, where we see freelancers who kind of have a, excuse my French again, but kind of a pissing contest where they're like, oh, I'm charging 500 an hour, and like, oh, I'm 600 an hour, you know, and it's just the wrong point. The point shouldn't be about the hour. Because if you explain to people what you charge on an hourly base, they're going to compare it to what they get, and you're always more expensive.
And you got the example by freelancers we know, not freelancers but solopreneurs we know, that got to, you know, to see who has the biggest.
Exactly.
What time per hour? Actually, I don't know, and I don't care. I just get paid by contract, just by bringing value, and I get paid highly. If I bring it to the hour, maybe it's around that, so way more than what you get, if that's what you wanted to know. But yeah, so I think that's something that a lot of people got stuck into, and maybe for some freelancers, and I'm sorry to tell you that, guys, but it's really egoistic, because you put yourself in a situation where you have to compare yourself. But no, you don't care. Whatever you get paid for, whatever job, just brings value, and you will make people pay way more and way more and way more time per time, the more you get skilled and the more value you bring. So don't get into that comparing our prices. It's just nonsense.
Plus, people don't need to know. The clients are not looking for that kind of information. And it's on you to make sure you're not bringing the point. For instance, someone contacts me, happened last week, online, and says, how much do you cost for an hour? That's the worst question ever.
Yeah.
First, because they're not getting any value out of that. And second, for me, it's an absolute trap. And it's also the wrong question if you think about it, because if I say, okay, that's the first time I'm meeting them, so I don't want to lose my time, right? But I want to do something with them, maybe. So I don't want my time means I'm going to put a price tag on it, a bit high. But if I want to really work with them, I'll do it lower than that, right? Still, let's say I'm going to say that's the first meeting is $350, right? Just so I'm not losing my time. I'm not making any profit on that or any big margin, but I'm not losing my time. But that's because we're on a discussion with the client where they're asking me what I cost for an hour. Now, we do the same exercise, but instead of saying we're talking about hours, we're talking about value. Then that client is also coming to see me and see, okay, what can I do about my brand? I want to revise the way my company is scaling up, and I want to change my positioning. What's your cost for an hour? One question again. Now, we do the same kind of logic, but we suggest a workshop or a series of workshops, right? The workshops, they include the place where we're going to be, their offices usually, right? So no cost for me, their offices. And maybe that's going to be 5 workshops, but if they need more, maybe that's going to be 7, right? So I'm not charging by the hour. I'm just giving options. And at the end of those workshops, they will have their head full of new ideas, new potential, new positionings that they can try with their own clients. And at the end of those workshops, they have, let's say, 5 or 6 new offers, and they can invite their clients and give, fake banknotes to the clients and say, here is 6 options. Which one do you buy? And based on that, the clients are going to put those fake notes on one of the options, and my client knows where they should be investing because they already have the client for it, right? This thing is not a question of 350 an hour or 800 an hour or 2,000 an hour, which becomes very expensive for an hour. It becomes a question of 70K for a program. That's a lot more. The beauty of it is once, and that's the secrets, right? The cooking secrets, don't repeat it. That's just between you and me. When you take the amount of time you've spent on that workshop, the 70K workshop, you spend less hours on that than on anything else. Which means if you try to make a ratio, the amount you technically charge for an hour is close to $4,000 an hour. Nobody would pay for that if you build it, if you charge it as an hourly rate.
Because it's an experience.
Because as an hourly rate, it's crazy. But because you turn it into an experience that's going to involve a team, that's going to make people brainstorm, and that's going to make them come up with ideas that they would not have otherwise, and solutions that they would never have otherwise, and with potential products that their clients can choose from. And in the end, it gets them to a product and a solution and an offering that the client is saying, I want to buy that. You're charging a lot more for it, and everyone is actually very happy to pay for it. Your hourly rate has been increased by what? 5, 10?
Exactly.
The beauty of it is you don't need to talk about the hours. That's the thing.
Yeah, and actually that's what we did we had some offer for different potential customers for the podcast studio, and that's what we did. We bring the whole experience, and we got to make the potential customer to pay high rate. What if we would have just made them pay per hour of renting studio and everything? It would have made no sense, because we would have win 10 times less. So yeah, it's the right way to bring value and to bring contracts for the customers, because you bring a whole experience in the end. Yeah. So done for today.
Yeah. So if we summarize, it means some ideas to scale a freelancing business would be: first, stop thinking like a freelancer.
Yeah, think like a businessman. Second,
still stop thinking like a freelancer. That's a good second one.
Okay, then
right?
Third, I will say, think about where you are an expert, which area. I don't know, it can be music, it can be different kind of market into what you do. Search for that expertise you have, and it will be way more easier to bring value for you in that area. If you focus on too much things, anybody can be better than you, and it's difficult to bring value.
So have a niche.
Yeah.
Be an expert, figure out what your skills are, but do not sell your skills. Yeah. Sell the value you can produce with those skills. And in the end, forget about time. Be time conscious, of course, but don't sell your time. This is the wrong currency.
Exactly. Done for today again.
Done for today.
Thank you guys for listening to us. It has been a great time. Antoine, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Say in comments what you liked, what you didn't. Of course, follow the page if you don't yet, the Scale Up Show. It has been a pleasure to have you there, and we see you at another call, guys, another podcast. Take care.
Cheers.